Welcome to Lessons That Last, where a researcher and a teacher talk about what it means to make a lasting impact on students' lives. They unpack the stories former students shared about their memorable teachers and discuss how we can all make a greater impact on the people in our lives. Here's Julie and Laura.
Hello and welcome to episode 15.
15!
I know, 15 episodes of the Lessons That Last podcast. Julie Hassan, researcher, professor, apparently almost podcast veteran at this point. And with me is my veteran podcast co-host,
Laura Estes Swilly, English teacher, writer, and I was thinking podcaster. I was thinking that. Yeah. So, Julie, don't keep me in suspense. I really want you to share your exciting news with everybody. What's happening this week?
Oh, it's a big week. It is launch week.
Yay!
Yay! So I've been waiting to share the latest book, Pause, Ponder, and Persist in the Classroom, with teachers, especially in summer. I'm hoping it might be in somebody's beach bag or on a porch with some lemonade. I'm just going to say lemonade, but whatever.
Okay, you say lemonade. That's what people drink on the porch, lemonade.
Do you? some spicy tea, I don't know. So it's launch week. We'll drop the link in the show notes in case you want to check it out. But if you do, please let us know what you think. I can't wait to share it.
I can't wait for people to read it and just be inspired by it. I love that it's coming out in summer, which is a time that we get so reflective on the year behind us and then start to look ahead to the year coming. And I think this will be a great, I would like food for thought, some vitamin P for Pause, Ponder, and Persist for the summer.
I hope so. It was definitely one of those books I wrote what I needed to learn.
Yes.
And coming out of COVID, what I really needed to learn was how to navigate all the challenges that were coming at me and all of us, and how to do it in a way that not just helped me make a bigger impact on the people I teach and I serve, but also navigate those challenges in a way that brought me more peace and helped me be a little more resilient. So I hope that the readers get that as well. 3 simple but not easy strategies coming at you.
Right? I love it. I'm so excited.
And I am excited about this story you picked today. You chose this one, which is Sondra's story about her 3rd grade teacher, Miss Andrews. And you made some connections to this story. So talk a little bit about why you picked it.
Well, I think I picked it from the teacher perspective. One of the big issues here is a teacher just caring about a student, understanding where the student is in their life. And I feel like that's something I try to do. I work really hard to focus on that, not only on curriculum, not only on what's in the book, right, but what's going on in the kid, in their lives and in their minds. And this teacher just did it so seamlessly and reminded me how important it is to see students as people first before we worry about scores and assessments and even classroom management. Who is the person sitting in that desk?
I love that. And this story made me think about how we all have to assume that everybody's just like us, right? That their home life is just like ours, that their experiences are similar to our experiences, and that can really cause some problems in a relationship when we don't understand that someone else has a different experience and we want to lay sort of the template of our experience and expectations upon them.
Right.
And then we have this conflict. In your case, you did not have a Mrs. Andrews.
I did not.
And had a similar situation, right?
I did. When you were talking about everyone's situation is the same as ours, and everything is, we tend to see through our own lens, and this is the way we've always done it, and so this is the way we always will do it. I think that's what I came up against as a kid. I didn't have maybe the most typical family. I've never met my birth father, biological father, and my mother married my father when I was 5, and we very much made a family. And I remember being asked, because of course he had been in my life for many, many years at that point, what do you want to call Bill? And I was like, Dad. He's my dad. I'm going to call him Dad. And so we were this really solid family, the 3 of us. And I felt like I was one of them, and they had the same last name, and I needed to have the same last name as well. And I didn't. My last name was the name on my birth certificate from the biological father who I had never seen before. So I just changed my name. I was like, I'm Estes. I don't know who you think you are. And I started writing my name Estes on all my papers. And that first grade teacher just kind of, I think, ignored it. She was fine, whatever. She was tired. She just, whatever.
She was a little old.
Yeah. She was not a young lady. But once I moved out of her class and into the rest of them, it was not appropriate to write a name that was not my name. And
like, what are y'all, lawyers? Like,
well, and that's the thing, when you really think about it, you came to that private school many years later, but at that time there was one class for each grade. That's it. There was one second grade teacher, one third grade teacher. We were all together all the time. So there were 20 third graders. How do you not know which one is me? So I put a different last name. It's still Laura. There's only one Laura in the class. I'm Estes in my mind and in my heart. Can't I just be Estes on your piece of paper? But I couldn't be, and they didn't allow it. And I wasn't able to be me until I was fully legally adopted with a new birth certificate. And then that little school allowed me to change my name. And I have always thought, as an adult, it was such a small place. Who cares what last name I put on a piece of paper? Everybody knew me. Everybody knew who I was. I could almost see in a big school, a big public school, where maybe that would matter and be more important. But why was it important there? And I think it's exactly what you said. Your name is your name. We don't make up new names here. And that was it. I had to be, I couldn't be Estes, even though I wanted to be, and I felt like I was. And that was hurtful, I think.
Did anyone ever try to explain it to you or ask you why? Like, was there ever a conversation about it, or it was just a quick, hard no and we're moving on?
No, there was no conversation. But also remember, it was the 70s. They didn't do a lot of talking to kids in the 70s.
Wasn't the 70s when all the self-esteem stuff was out? Maybe not at that particular school.
I don't think that early.
Okay. So I went to public school in the 70s. And it was about that time when I would go to a small group in the counselor's office, and it was a self-esteem group. I know that now. I did not know that then. And they did this thing, and I don't know, maybe people our age who are listening, also, if you did experience it, like, please reach out to me and let me know. But you would write on this piece of paper the letters IALAC, which stood for I am lovable and capable. And so, yes. And like they would do these lessons. We had a really good guidance counselor. And like, if people did things that hurt you or damaged your sense of self, like, they would tear little pieces off your ILAC tag. So I'm thinking these teachers tore some chunks off your ILAC.
Oh yeah. I'm sure that would have been, I'm just trying to process this happening?
Not on beanbag chairs in a circle. Like, you were in the wrong space,
I was.
sister.
Listen, I'm thinking none of that would have ever happened at Maddox Private School. That was not what we were about. Wow. I mean, we did have swimming lessons. So there's that at school in our little school pool. But that's about as offbeat and out of the box as we went. So no one ever talked to me about it other than to say, your name is not Estes. You can't write that on your papers. And I was a nice kid. So I was like, okay, I won't do that. And I went back to the other name. But I felt it. I definitely felt it because it was really part of my sense of belonging to my family and also belonging to my dad. All my friends had the same last name as their dads, and I should too.
It's interesting because we're still, as educators, talking about honoring students' identities, like in many different ways. But that's really what you're saying is,
yes,
they didn't respect and honor my identity that because of something on a piece of paper.
Right. And I wonder if it just goes back to where you started. It didn't make sense to them. When a kid is born, this is their name, and then that's always their name. And in 1975 or 76 or 77, we weren't thinking about, chosen names, and we weren't thinking about how much families were changing and in flux in our culture. I think that these teachers have been teaching since the 50s. Wow. And so it was this is your name. Why are we playing silly games? And let's move on to fractions because those are more important. I think that's the message I got. And I think it's probably accurate.
Right. Except for one hippie guidance counselor at the public school down the road.
I can't believe, honestly, that was happening at that school. Right? That's almost like a little country public school in the middle of nowhere.
Right. Like suburban, almost rural, like on the edge of suburbia. Yeah, but a really good guidance counselor.
Very progressive.
And clearly I did not exhibit as someone with strong self-esteem. Not surprising. And I'm not sure that changed a lot for me, but I enjoyed it.
It sounds nice. I would have never been
snacks,
Yeah, I don't think I would have been identified for that group though, because this is still around the time that I was giving birth on the playground.
Right, you were a performer.
I was a performer.
People, which is another interesting thing. So, if you are super quiet and shy at that time, we're going to identify you as someone with probably a low self-esteem.
Right.
And if you are performing on the playground like a young Betty Davis, we're going to assume you have a high self-esteem.
Right. And actually, it was probably knowing us the opposite. You didn't need to perform, and I did.
Oh, I feel like we're, I know people are listening, but we're just in a little therapy session.
Well, we're learning so much. We are. And I think it's so important when we reflect on our education. I'm always looking at the people in front of me through that lens, right? So my name wasn't respected. And I had a student this year who changed names 3 times. And it was a little hard to keep up with, but I understood how important it was. Names are very important to me. And until I started reflecting on this story, I really didn't know why names were so important to me, but I get it now. So what we did, how we performed, how we learned, definitely helps us understand the people in front of us. And between us, we're so different that I love learning about you as a kid because I have kids like you in front of me every day. And that's not my nature.
Well, I just need you to know that you are lovable and capable.
I want one of those.
I am going to make you a tag.
Okay.
When people don't act right to you, I want you just to tear a little piece off and let them know that they have damaged your ILAC tag.
Okay. I will keep that to myself. But it kind of made me giggle because I fought so hard to have the last name Estes. And then I got my first teaching job here in kind of I call it suburban. It's rural and suburban.
Yes.
My school. And for 20 years, they said my name wrong. Everyone in the office, every secretary, everyone said my name, Estes, for 20 years. And my students would say, I don't think that's right. It's Estes. And they'd be like, no, Miss Estes, Miss Estes. And I fought for that, but it's okay. I don't care how you say it. You're saying the same name.
Yeah. But it is important. I mean, you make an important point. There's something about honoring identities and names and trying to say them correctly.
Yes.
Honoring like what people tell you their name is or how you say it.
Right. Right.
So with that, will you share Sondra's story about Mrs. Andrews?
I will. I love Sondra's story. My father passed away from cancer when I was in first grade. And when I was in third grade, my mom got engaged to my stepfather. Mrs. Andrews showed compassion, asking me if I wanted to sign my papers with my new last name I was about to get when my stepfather adopted me. I was thrilled. While some adults didn't know what to say about my mom marrying again after such a terrible loss, Mrs. Andrews asked my opinion. She even came to the wedding. Another thing that I loved about Mrs. Andrews is the way we sang in class every day. We sang the multiplication tables each morning after singing America the Beautiful. When I became a teacher myself, I carried on her tradition of singing every day in class, and I made a point of going to at least one special event for each student every year, whether it be a baseball game, a wedding, or a simple visit to their home. The impact Mrs. Andrews made lives on in my teaching.
Oh, Mrs. Andrews.
And I would say that impact lives on in Sondra's students' lives as well.
Yes. When we talk about feeling seen, and when someone doesn't brush off the hard things that are happening or the great things that are happening and asks, how are you doing? And what do you think about what's going on? And not only that, comes to the important event or events in your life. I mean, talk about feeling seen and known.
Right. And that second part of Miss Andrews, the going to the wedding and making sure that she was there to support her student is so important. And I feel like no one tells you how important that is. As a new teacher or a young teacher, I don't think anyone says you need to show interest in your students outside of the classroom, and you will see a difference in your relationship inside the classroom. And I think we need to start telling teachers that. I learned it. I picked it up along the way, mostly because I hit a wall with a student and I needed to figure it out. And so I went to a JV football game and I stood at the fence and made sure that kid saw me and we had eye contact because I needed him to know I was there to see him. And I think it did change a little bit of the way he saw me. I wasn't just another teacher. I was still just a teacher, but I was just that teacher who came to support him outside the classroom.
And it's interesting too, not only do you help them feel worthy of your time and your effort because they know their teachers are busy, but you also learn things about them.
Yes.
And I had a great principal, Sally Stevens. I know I've talked about her before when I was like a new teacher. And I had a student, a kindergarten student, whose father died in a car accident. And she said, I'll go with you to the funeral. And I said, I wasn't going to go to the funeral. And partly because it just was going to be too hard, right? It was going to be hard.
Yeah.
No one wants to go to a funeral like that. He had left behind this wife who I loved. She was such a great parent volunteer, and Ben, who was in kindergarten, and his little sister, who was 3. I'm like, I'm not going. And Sally's like, we go to funerals. And she went with me and sat with me and held my hand, and we were fine. And it was really, really hard. But I learned so much about him, and the family felt so supported. So even things that aren't celebrations or events like that, I learned from her. Like, we go to funerals, and you and I have been to, as very experienced educators now, countless funerals.
Yes.
But
yes.
I go because Sally said this is important.
I love that she said that. We go to funerals. That it was not a question. It was, right. This is what a good teacher does. And we're part of a community, and this is how we support each other. And as large as my community is, I have been to a lot of funerals. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. And sometimes I do think, the reasons we don't get in deeper with kids, like your teachers about your name, or those of us who were like, oh, don't know if I can go to that funeral. It's just because it's messy. Like, this is the work we do, right? We are intimately involved in people's lives.
Yes, that's true. The whole idea of it takes a village, that when that book first came out was reviled. No one appreciated that idea, but we've really started to embrace it and realize we can't raise kids in a vacuum. We have to have support. We have to have a village. If you're a teacher, you are part of so many villages that you're going to lose count how many villages you belong.
So what do we do knowing that? And especially for you guys in high school who have so many students. And if you were a teacher, we all have a lot in our own lives going on, but it may be a season in your life where you have babies at home, or elderly parents, or other challenges. How do we navigate that desire to connect with kids outside of class, or to show them that we are their village with our own sort of limitations?
Yeah. When you were saying that, I was thinking, or you're in grad school, think about your students.
Yes.
They're busy professionals and in graduate school. How are they supposed to manage this? I think that there are ways to show kids that you're supporting them that don't necessarily have to be outside of school. I like outside of school events. I like to go to the sports. I always go to the drama. Poetry readings, choral performances, that sort of things. But I think when you're on campus, there are other opportunities as well. You can see a kid during your free period doing something that's important to them. Or you can recognize someone's accomplishment from another class. In an elementary situation, if I teach 3rd grade, I still have 2 more years of those kids being on my campus to sort of follow them and know what they're doing and reach out to them. I'm a big fan of sending a note about how proud I am of your recent accomplishment to a kid into someone else's class, because it's just a touch point and a touch back for them to know that I'm still paying attention.
Yeah, so I think finding little opportunities in the school day happens. I've seen teachers just go into the lunchroom,
yes,
and chat with some kids at lunchtime. Now, the little ones just light up if they see their teacher or a former teacher or someone's just going to spend a little time with them at breakfast or lunch. I think the bigger ones try to pretend that they're not, maybe, but they are, right? When you go by their lunch table and, tease them a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Yeah. I've noticed when you talk about the self-esteem group, a kid's social capital is very obvious based on how they interact with teachers in the hallway. I have students who are in my class right now, or they were because they're gone now, who we have a great relationship. We work together, we interact, we have our little jokes, but they will walk right by me in the hallway. And that tells me they don't feel confident showing other kids that they are connected to a teacher. And so you have to watch that. You have to be aware of those signals, I think.
Yeah, I probably know the age and the stage.
Yeah.
You know, when my Connor, I always went to every conference night because I'm that mom, just that. And I remember him like as a middle schooler, especially 10th and 11th grade, when not everybody goes to conference night.
Right.
He would be like, why are we here? He would walk 10 steps ahead of me. He would, if he saw another kid who was unfortunate enough to have a mom like me or struggling, like whatever, who knows, he would like head down, like, hey. And then all of a sudden, senior year, we would go to conference night and he would be like, this is my mom, everybody. My mom is here.
Yep. Yeah.
That's just if it's just the stage they are, like you know that age way better than me, but there was some turning point in senior year where all of a sudden, I wasn't a leper.
I always ask on conference day, so how many of your parents are coming tonight? And I'll get the right. And then I say, well, I hope you're coming too. And usually they do, unless they have some sort of sports or job. But when they come in, they're perfectly happy to be there with their parents and introduce me and talk about our class and that kind of thing. But it's more of a rolling of the eyes, but not embarrassed, not angry at all. Whereas the younger kids, it's very prickly to come to conference night.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
And equally prickly to have mom in the stands cheering for you loudly.
Mm-hmm.
Or your teacher, Miss Estes, in the stands cheering for you loudly. It's the same idea. How they feel about their social, stratus. Where am I in the scheme of this community? And I'm not ready for adults to think I'm awesome. I need the kids to think I'm awesome first.
So we've got to be aware developmentally,
yes,
of where they are. Now, our college athletes love when you come and cheer loudly.
No doubt.
We've been following App State baseball, which has had a great season. We rarely have an education major who's in a sport like that. But this particular year, we have Hayden Cross, who is a catcher and a big hitter and amazing. And so, and there are a couple of accounting majors. So when Brian and I sit together and Hayden does something, of course, yell education. When his do something, accounting. And they're just glad you're there, like, and cheering because they've worked so hard to get there. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important to athletes at any level that someone comes and supports them.
Yes, I agree. And our football team probably, I don't remember if they were doing this when Kaylin was there, but in not that long ago, maybe within the last 10 years, at the end of every game, they would go and have like a little powwow. I don't really know what it's called, little team conference. And then they would line up and walk the fence, and at the fence would be the fans. So their parents, their friends, their teachers. And so Jason would always ask me, all right, do you want to go to the fence? And I'm like, are you kidding? We're going to the fence. I just saw what I saw. We gotta be there. And to have a 250-pound sweaty, really gross post-game hug with a kid over a chain link fence because you saw them, it means something. It means something to them, so it means something to you. I do too. I love that tradition. It's so great. So great.
I think that is a great place for us to wrap up this discussion. I'm going to be thinking about hugging sweaty kids, hugging a kid in theater makeup, hugging a kid trying to carry a big instrument, like all of the things, all of the opportunities we have to be part of a kid's village.
And to affirm who they are and what they do, because as kids, what they do is completely embedded in who they are.
Yeah. Oh, thank you, Miss Andrews, for this sweet model, and Sondra for sharing that story and carrying on that tradition.
Yes.
Have a great week, everybody. We will see you next week. Take some time to rest, recharge. We are part of your village, and we are cheering you on.
Enjoy your week, friends. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope you will subscribe to the Lessons That Last podcast wherever you listen. Give us a rating too, which will help other listeners find us. And don't forget to visit chalkandchances.com for more stories. You can also find more information on Julie's research and books. While you're there, take the quiz to find out what kind of memorable teacher you are. I took it and was surprised by what I found. I think you'll find good food for thought. Let us know about your quiz results. We hope you will meet us here each week and bring a friend to share the conversation.